I'm here with Dr. Mike Mew, who is a lecturer. He's a lead clinician at the London School of Facial Orthotropics, and he has become quite a bit of an expert on understanding what's going on with our jaws, with our breathing issues, with our posture, so many things connected to this. We know that the problem of if you were a child of the 90s, you probably had to get braces in America. It's a big problem. A lot of people have crooked teeth, crowded teeth, teeth that show up here. Kids in the 90s, they had teeth up here in their cheek. Like, how did you get a tooth up there coming in that high up? I mean, it's all over the place. But we're glad to have Dr. Mike Mew with us. Thanks for joining us.
Cool. Thank you very much, David. Thank you for your introduction. If I want to describe myself, I would more say I was an expert on faces.
Okay.
Why some grow well, and why some don't grow well. And the fact that there is a very large environmental influence on how our faces grow. I think people almost don't want to hear this. They want to feel that their face has grown genetically and that's it. But that is not happening. In modern society, faces are not growing as well as they should do. People aren't filling their full genetic potential, and crooked teeth, breathing issues, posture, forward head posture leading to postural issues, and many of the otolaryngology problems are associated with the face is not growing correctly. If you will, they're all symptoms. We've got this range of symptoms associated with incorrect facial development. Put simply, a structure that's not the right shape doesn't work as well as it should.
And so what is the root cause of improper facial development? Is it, it's environmental, you said, and there's also a genetic component, right? But what is the primary environmental factor that's driving this development of improper facial structures?
Well, there seem to be two main factors. The first factor is we've gone from this incredibly rough, tough, hard, calorie poor diet. 10,000 years ago, people who didn't get enough food starved to death. Population was controlled by your ability to get enough calories on board.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've gone to this society where we've got, we're not short of food anymore, but the food's so soft, and calorie rich. I could make a drink that could give you a third of your calories for the day. It's not, I watch out. I think a white chocolate mocha in Starbucks is, I think, was something like 600 calories. That is nigh on a third of your calorific intake for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how much chewing do you need to do to get those calories on board? Basically nothing. And that means the amount of chewing you're going to do for the day has been reduced by a third before you've started, before you even consider that the other meals you're going to do are going to be, they're hardly going to exercise your jaws. And of course, I've got a good jaw. I've got a strong jaw. And that strong jaw is related to those strong muscles. That's simple. That's Wolff's law, almost down to a T. Now, how do you get strong muscles? How do you get strong chewing muscles?
You got to use it or you'll lose it. Yeah.
Simple. See these guys chewing gum all the time. They've got strong jaws. Now, it's a simple use it or lose it. David, we all eat processed foods. Either you're going to process them yourself with this unit here, or you're going to buy them pre-processed. Now, if you don't use your processing unit, it won't be as well developed.
Mm-hmm.
That's not rocket science. That's very simple logic, and it's clear and it's obvious. And you look at the wear on our ancestors' teeth. It wasn't uncommon that they had a lot of wear on their teeth, and that really reflects the fact that they chew more. And that's well covered in, anthropological or archaeological literature. And, there's good evidence. There's very good, solid evidence for that. The other thing that seems to have occurred is we're getting these nasal obstructions. Now, You know, David, I'm an orthodontist. I'm not an expert on nasal obstructions, but I think we can all agree that nasal obstructions, allergies, and the like are going up at an exponential rate. And I'd say it would be very unusual for a child not to have several nasal obstructions, even in the first year of their life.
Please define nasal obstruction.
Nasal obstruction, when you can't breathe out your nose, blocked nose.
So your nostrils are too small? I used to be called no nose when I was a kid.
But we're not going into that.
Nose. Yeah.
I'm not going into that at the moment, David. In the first year of life, we're assuming your development's been fairly good because you've only just been born. There's maybe some congenital issues here, but it's not my area of expertise.
I see.
What I know is that in that first year of childhood, most individuals will have blocked noses. And they'll have blocked noses multiple times, usually for multiple days. Now, they're then left with a stark choice. Either they're not going to breathe, that's not a very good survival strategy, or they're going to remove their tongue. They're going to take the tongue off the roof of the mouth. They're going to lose that very important tongue to palate contact. They're going to break lip seal, open their lips, and breathe out their mouth. They will become, for the duration of the nasal blockage, they become a mouth breather. Now, after the nasal obstruction is cleared, they will either return completely, partially, or not return at all to their previous posture. And what's happening is many people are closing their lips, but those tongues are not going back on the roof of the mouth. And without that tongue on the roof of the mouth, the top jaw is going to get narrower.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've seen someone, so see someone who's had a stroke, right? And what's happened? Well, they're hanging the mouth open and they've got weak muscles.
Right.
Now, what I'm saying, and this is the very controversial element, it's very controversial, but it is true. It is absolutely on the nail. And that is that very, very few people in a modern society faces are growing properly. Most people listening to this, if you're listening to this right now, there's a high probability that your face is deformed. Your face has not grown to its full genetic potential. Face it, if you go back and look at the skull, I couldn't tell you if our ancestors had breathing issues. I couldn't tell you if they had diabetes or many of the modern diseases that we have now. But I know where their teeth were, or often still are in the skulls. You know, go to the British Museum, go to the big American museums. You know, you can see where the skulls are, or the teeth are. You can see these skulls, and they all had all 32 teeth. They had all their wisdom teeth included, and a good space usually behind the wisdom teeth, with these huge, great big arches. You know, you think about someone who's walked off the African Serengeti, someone out of the Brazilian rainforest, someone who's walked off the Australian outback. And these guys have beautiful body posture. They stand straight, they stand well, and they've got beautiful bone structure. Their faces are well constructed, as faces should be. And they have this big, broad smile with all of their teeth, including their wisdom teeth. These guys have never seen an orthodontist. They don't have to wear retainers for the rest of their lives. They did that naturally, very similarly to all of the members of all of the other 5,400 species of mammal. Now, what has happened? Why all of a sudden do 50% or more of kids are needing assistance getting their teeth straight? These teeth don't stay straight. We're having wisdom teeth taken out. And of course, as there's less and less space within the mouth, there's less and less space for the tongue. The tongue's in the airway. Well, where the hell else is it going to go?
Right.
It's when you stop and look at it, it's fairly clear and obvious.
When you say the tongue needs to rest at the roof of the mouth, there's that there's that really upper roof, and then there's that ridge. Does it stay at the ridge, or do you shove it all the way up so that the whole thing is in contact with the actual upper part of the roof
So
there?
we're talking about these modern, slightly deformed palates here. These palates, you should have a big, broad palate where the whole thing is very shallow and the whole tongue fits up onto it. Most people will struggle to get their tongue on the roof of the mouth if they try now.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible for some is not. Effectively, the tongue should be on the roof of the mouth, not quite touching the teeth, covering all the skin, we call it mucosa, on the roof of your mouth. But, you know, times have changed. In a way, I give that example of someone, it's a bit like most people in a modern society have had a mild, symmetric, so bilateral stroke. All our faces have dropped down. You know, if you've got weak chewing muscles and you hang your mouth open with your lips or even without your lips closed, your face is going to get longer. Well, if it gets longer, it's going to get narrower and it's going to get shallower. The cross-sectional area reduces. And that's, we can see this in the fact that go back 10,000 years and everyone had, you know, as I said, the guys off the Serengeti, the Australian outback, and these guys, and they were more like our ancestors than we are. That's the thing, you know, we might think, oh, well, they're strange people, they're not the same as us. No, if you look at their skulls, they look very, very similar to our ancestors. Everyone was like that. Everyone on the plain, everyone from the Inuits to South American tribes to people out in North China, everyone, all of these peoples had these big, broad arches. They stood up straight, tough chewing muscles. And as the face gets longer, it gets narrower and shallower, the cross-sectional area reduces, and we have progressively less space for the teeth. People tell me, oh, we don't get wisdom teeth because we don't need them. I mean, sorry, has anyone told this to Darwin? Because it's not how evolution works. It's not because we don't need it. You have to have selection. Survival of the fittest, it's death of the weakest. And unless someone's going around sterilizing or executing people who get their wisdom teeth in, things aren't going to change. There is no credible scientific evidence that suggests that orthodontic problems are genetic, or that these extra teeth we have is genetic, or lack of space for wisdom teeth is genetic. And of course, as the cross-sectional area reduces, we get less space for the tongue. And so the tongue's going in the airway. So then people are holding their heads forwards to open their airway, you know, extending their head, you know, very similar to the ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. You know, the first thing you do in resuscitation is extend the neck. Well, you can extend your neck in a forward head posture. And yeah, you know, but most likely, you know, these, you know, electronic devices haven't helped forward head posture. You know, we've gone from looking at the horizon for predators or prey. And then we've moved to looking at televisions in the middle of the last century. Then we went to desktop computers and tablets and laptops and phones. And so progressively, we're leaning over more. And I'm sure that hasn't helped. But if you can't breathe, you're going to hold your head forwards. You know, as much as you want, you know, the angel on one side saying, Mike makes a very good point. It's backed by basically all the science and standing up straight. You know, everything I can be saying is broken down to stand up straight and shut your mouth. That's the message. It's not complex. But if you try, most people try and stand up straight like this, chin tuck, stand totally so the lobe of their ear is above the traps, the top upper trap. If you're standing up roughly like that, most people have got no chin left. They've just got double chins. You know, I'd challenge you to try it, David. See what happens to your tongue. It's going in your airway. Feel it, and it doesn't feel comfortable. So you know that's correct. You know that's what you should be doing. But you've got the devil on the other side that goes, breathe. And what's going to happen? What are you going to remember most? What's the most important thing in your life?
To breathe, yeah.
Yeah, your next breath, mate. Yeah, you'd give it all. You'd give away the Ferrari or the dream of one for your next breath.
Where do they get that insult? They call people mouth breathers. Is that where that
Well, look at the facial form of mouth breathers.
Yeah.
Look at them.
Yeah.
I was doing some research on the village idiot, because I think the village idiot is the adenoidal face. And I came across images of both Trump. No, it wasn't. Hang on, it was Obama and it was Bush Jr. Both of them had been morphed to look like village idiots, because it just subtly gives this, it's the subtle signs. We know it in us. It's so interesting how we just know things. We're hardwired to know when things aren't right. And by portraying someone in that way makes them look stupid. That classic adenoidal face, hello, what's going on? In the same way that we're hardwired to know what's healthy. I think that there's no such thing as attractive. Attractive is healthy. We're hardwired to be attracted to healthy people. My phrase is, your face is a CV of your health. And I make people good looking. That's my job. I'm trying to make them healthy. That's what I want. But I know, it's very hard work to do what I do. But I take young children whose faces don't look right, and we grow them, and they have fantastic faces. Now, I don't know that I'm getting the best facial results ever achieved by anyone on the history of medicine, because no one will compare their results with me. No one.
Why is it
but I think I am?
You work in London, and Great Britain has had a reputation for having some bad teeth. Why is that?
Why? Well, we had the Industrial Revolution first. So of course we've got the worst teeth. I mean, it's clear and obvious. We live in a climate we tend to live indoors, locked up, because the weather's just terrible. This summer, what's happening?
You don't get enough vitamin D, right? You don't get enough vitamin D, so you've got chronic sinus issues probably, right?
Everything. You look at it, because it's just, if you've reduced the cross-sectional area, you don't have, the sinuses don't have enough space to breathe, or drain properly. We talk about that guy who's the adenoidal face. Well, those are the guys who get the otolaryngology problems.
And is the problem of crooked teeth and everything, is that across the board in your practice around different ethnic groups, or is it primarily in a particular ethnic group?
No, we're all. There are tendencies towards a class 3, so it's jutting out that prognathic jaw we talked about earlier on. There's a tendency to have more of that in your Asian groups, also the Chinese, Japan, those groups. And there's more of a tendency among the Caucasians to have class 2, the slack jaws. Remember the film The Italian Job, when Michael Caine talks to the drivers of the Minis, and he goes, "Oh, so what the chinless wonder's going to say?" Because why was he saying that? Well, the chinless wonder was the rich person. So people who could drive cars at the time were more likely to be wealthier. This is all, it's so much in our lexicon, language history of what's happening. When the American Indians would call the white man whack jaws, because compared to the American Indians, all these white people coming across had terrible facial development. And so this
That's
is
before the Industrial Revolution then, huh?
That was, yeah. Things were already looking poor.
What was the reason then? They weren't eating vegetable oils and drinking mocha lattes in the early 1800s.
The consistency of the diet was getting progressively softer and softer.
They were eating corn too much.
What I say matches very well with the sort of Paleolithic diet concept. As we've moved away from these tougher foods to these grains and stuff, that it's a lot softer.
Yeah, it reminds me when I had grass-fed beef at a friend's house. They cooked it. It was their own cow, you had to chew for an hour. It was almost like you were dying chewing and chewing and water and water just for one bite of that roast beef. It's like, yo, this is delicious. Chew, 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 chew.
Yeah,
Just the first bite.
And that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
You know, I watch kids and the food is literally in their mouth and swallowed with 2 chews and it's gone. And the meal time's gone in 5 minutes.
So you mentioned the environmental factor. You said there's 2. You mentioned the change in our diet. What's the second environmental factor?
That was the blocked noses, the change in
blocked nose. Okay.
So when
I would suggest that that's coming from inflammation, probably again due to diet. So we're not eating proper nutrients.
As I said, you know, David, I'm an expert in one very, very small area, and I'd rather be a proper expert in one area than a kind of pseudo expert in too many.
Mm-hmm. So that's my job. That's what radio guys do. But anyways, so when I look at this topic, again, so what about breastfeeding? Is that a major factor here?
Well, yeah. Okay. So the next on down, we've got to look at the muscle patterns within mouths. So what my proposal, so we've come up with this concept called craniofacial dystrophy. So it's the disease that you've all got, you never knew about. And I think, you know, it's as I'm sorry, David, my mind was wandering off. Repeat the question.
We're talking about breastfeeding.
Oh, yes. So the basic structure of the bones is more influenced by the muscle strength and the general posture. Then when we get into the fine details of the balance within the mouth, we talk about the neutral zone within dentistry. And the neutral zone is that the fact that the teeth, the gums, and the bone around the teeth sit in a balance zone between the lips and the tongue. So because they sit in this balance zone, the posture and function of the lips and the tongue is very important, because that will help either develop wider gentle arches or smaller dental arches. Remember, I'm doing dental arch more than I'm talking jaws here. But of course, this is it's a matrix. It's flowing, you know, and it seems that breastfeeding it was very important, particularly because it really encouraged the tongue to be on the palate. So it really helped you establish that tongue to palate contact. But it seems to be that breastfeeding was required for a good 2 to 3 years, with initially exclusively and progressively more food introduced. But babies would have gone from breastfeeding to solid food. There was a real lack of blenders 10,000 years ago. You didn't have any. So there was no chance. I mean, mum might have chewed some food for you and given it to you, but I would imagine fairly quickly she would have tired of doing that. But you would just be given the food everyone else had. And you would have been tough. So you would have gone, you know, you'd have had enough nutrients from the breastfeeding, and slowly, 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 you would have introduced other tough foods. And you would have had to work hard to get your calories from that. And it's this constant work with the tongue pushing forwards on the roof of the mouth, as you have to in a breastfeeding action, that would have developed the face very nicely.
Because you're exercising the jaw when you're chewing.
Well, you're really getting the tongue. Remember, it's the tongue will build the midface.
Really, the tongue is the master. The tongue is the key.
Yeah, the tongue's key. It's all about the tongue.
Are your teeth supposed to rest on, when you're walking around, are your teeth supposed to rest on each other? Are they supposed to have a little space?
Yes. Now, I have so many discussions with dentists. We talk about the freeway space in dentistry as if the tongue is supposed to rest slightly between the teeth, with the teeth separated 2 to 3 millimeters. I disagree. I think we've only seen modern humans. And when you look at ancestral material, the high suggestion is this wasn't, the teeth were almost touching. But of course, if you have your tongue on the roof of the mouth, it's going to act as an antagonist against the chewing muscles. So, you know, if you clench or you grind, because your tongue's not on the roof of the mouth. Your tongue's on the roof of the mouth. Now you all of a sudden have your natural antagonist working against your jaw closing muscles. The system just kicks in. Try it. You know, I guess many of you will struggle to get your tongue on the roof of the mouth properly.
I've had it almost the entire interview. I'm doing great. Feels like I'm lifting weights right now.
Yeah. Can
you tell it's up there? Can you tell it?
No, you can't. This is the big problem. David, one of the biggest problems here is we have no idea where most people's tongues are most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And any attempt to look will probably change the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I just want to have a sneak preview into your mouth, well, I'm going to have to disturb you to do that.
So we don't know whether they're really following through with keeping it there.
Sorry, say it again.
We don't really know whether they're following through when no one's looking because you can't see.
No, and this is, so I have this endless debate with people. The problem is, again, it's that the desire to breathe is a constant all the time. And people make a real effort to change, but they don't change as much as they think they do. And for most people, when I say getting the tongue on the roof of the mouth, it is not just as simple. You've got to get the back of the tongue up there properly. Then you need to get the tongue suctioned onto the roof of the mouth. So, and then something very strange, it's almost like a primitive innate reflex that then occurs and the tongue just hitches up and stays on the roof of the mouth. And and I think that this is the anterior column of head support. We're missing this column of head support because the tongue's hanging down and then it goes down. And this primitive reflex of the tongue being on the roof of the mouth is missing in most people. And for a lot of people, if they try to get the tongue on the roof of the mouth, if they try particularly to get the back third of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, then, well, the back of the tongue's in their airway. And how do you cope with that situation?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So what is the solution? Or first of all, let's keep talking about the problem, then we'll get to the solution. So what are some of the downstream effects of, because for first thing is people want to have good aesthetics with their teeth. And so if that's not a big enough motivator for you.
David, back up a second.
Yeah.
People are going to want good aesthetics with their faces far before they want good aesthetics with their teeth.
Right.
Look around. Look at the people that grace the covers of magazines. These really good bone structures. Well, if you've got good bone structure, you've got good facial development, you will probably have space for all your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also going to have space for your tongue, your airway, and most of those people have pretty straight teeth. Maybe not perfect, and I know a lot of those people on magazine covers get their teeth aligned because they're perfectionists, don't really need it. You look at people with really poor facial growth, do they have straight teeth? Generally not. It's difficult to be 100% on anything. It's the human body, biological variation.
Yeah, if you don't be careful, you're going to start a social justice campaign for crooked teeth. That's going to be a problem. You know that, right?
Well,
people are going to say, my crooked teeth is beautiful. It is my right. You are suppressing me by telling me my teeth are bad.
I hate to think of the...
you're going to start that. You better be careful.
I hate to think of the... Listen, I'm a doctor.
You're in London.
I'm trying to make people well, all right? Now, I hate to think
They're going to call it jaw positivity. Jaw positivity.
Yeah, I hate to think what people are going to say. They're going to eat me alive, I'm sure. It's just... I'm trying to make people well, but it's such an emotive thing. This is why this science has been ignored. People don't want to admit that the way their face has grown isn't perfect.
Why?
We're in this era where everyone says, oh, be happy with how you are.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, and die young. That's what we're talking about. Because,
right.
I went to a lecture in Philadelphia, and I said that I thought that 10% of people over 60 were going to die 10 years early from sleep apnea and its consequences. And asking around in the audience later, people said to me, Mike, been a bit conservative there. It's closer to 20%. Now, remember, when I qualified as a dentist in 93. Sleep apnea wasn't in the syllabus. It wasn't mentioned once. Now, how come we've got a disease that was not in my syllabus that now is going to kill 20% of Americans 10 years early? It was a wake up. Look at the facts. You know, the thing I'm frustrated with is I've been challenging everyone in the UK to a simple debate. Why are teeth crooked? How can we have an industry that's treating at least half of the children of this country that has no idea why teeth are crooked? Or maybe it has some idea, but is treating it as if it were genetic, when it is clearly not genetic. I mean, how can that happen? How can we not only not know, but not be interested?
Because humans, this is what a guy emailed me, a listener of my show. He said humans will choose every option that's expedient before they choose the ethical right option, and that's just the way they are.
Well, yeah, I hate to think
You know,
whether there's a little bit of money involved as well, but
well, it's just the inertia of if it ain't, if it ain't broke for my business, why fix it? Why
yeah.
change the
But it
paradigm? We
also
have this in medicine and
requires,
everything. I mean, there are breakthroughs happening in cancer, but they don't get any attention because it would blow up the billions of dollars that are invested in the old model. So the old model has inertia that new models don't. And so what you're talking about is an old plus new model, because you're talking about going back to the way things used to be, but you're
yeah.
using new techniques to do it. So you're just a little bit ahead of the time, and there's a lot of horse and buggy manufacturers that don't want this automobile on the road.
No, they don't want change. They want change. But of course, my worry is that sometimes, and not so infrequently, orthodontics can make the problem worse. And that's the real kick here, because no one wants to admit they are damaging people's health and badly damaging health. No one wants to admit.
So starting back, we have a lot of young listeners too. So for those who have little kids, what's the good foundation to get it right from the beginning? So you're breastfeeding. What?
Chew gum.
Chew gum.
Chew gum. Well, use your muscles. Chew gum from a young age. I know it's just not what people want to hear. But, I think, okay, so we've got a campaign out. Please go to preventcrookedteeth.com.
Okay.
Yep, go and sign the campaign. Go and get some information from that site. We should be talking prevention, because that's where we're going.
Right.
If you end up on my door needing treatment, something's gone wrong. Breastfeeding, yes, great idea. Check you don't have a serious tongue tie. Good food, good hard quality food.
That includes organ meats if you can, because those have a lot of the vitamins that people are missing. These ancestral vitamins.
Remember, not my area.
Yeah.
Yeah, not my area. I mean,
you just don't want to be on record endorsing liver and onions. I understand.
I mean, I hate to say this is the crazy thing, because I've got Crohn's disease. I've got it quite badly, and so I have a limited diet, which has to follow. I every morning my breakfast is homemade liver pate.
Yeah, get rid of the vegetable oils, and that will clear up the Crohn's disease.
Well, I use coconut oil.
Yeah, good. But just watch the packaged goods, the crackers, things you get. Make sure they don't have canola.
None of it. No, my diet.
Safflower.
I have the most boring diet in the world.
Yeah. Do you eat a lot of chicken with fat on it, or like
mainly
cold water fish, like farm rate?
So salmon belly.
Is it farm raised?
I can't afford that.
It's what? Oh, so you eat farm raised?
Yeah, I can't afford.
Yeah, that's going to be inflammatory to Crohn's, because it's got a lot of the
but I'm the only orthodontist that can't afford the time off to go on holiday, and hey, couldn't afford holidays anyway.
Yeah,
I've got next week off. I'm staying at home.
Yeah. How about chicken or pork? Do you eat that? Watch out for the fat.
I eat quite a lot of meat. My fallback, if I'm flaring up, I go back to meat only.
Yeah, that's the safe space.
Yeah, that's my safe space. Is meat only. Then I might introduce some avocado. I eat a lot of bone broth, so a lot of soups with bone broth. Yeah. And I've learned by experience. For me, it's not one of these things where I go, oh, I should do that because that's going to make me better 10 years. It's tomorrow.
Right.
If I don't do it right, tomorrow I feel the pain.
Right.
Anyway, off subject.
Yeah. So sleep apnea is caused by having these malformed faces, right? That's kind of where you're.
Okay, all right. So I'm not an expert on sleep apnea. I'm an orthodontist, but I think sleep apnea is caused by a downswing in facial form. So what we're talking about is, what I'm saying is, if you've got weak chewing muscles, your lips are hanging open, your jaw's hanging down with your tongue low. So you're just looking gormless with weak jaw muscles, your face is going to lengthen. A little bit like a bilateral stroke. It's a little bit like you're a waxwork model that's got too close to the fire and you've melted down.
Yeah.
And as you melt down, that's called a downswing. Then what I'm trying to do with treatment is gain an upswing in facial form. I'm not very interested in straightening teeth. I'm more interested in the whole face, because people with good faces have straight teeth. People with not such good facial growth don't tend to have straight teeth. And making them straight artificially is a mug's game, in my view. It's never going to stay. And wearing retainers for the rest of your life means you're holding your teeth out of where they want to go. You're holding them out of their balance zone. Well, you can hold the teeth out the balance zone with a retainer. Can you hold the bone and the supporting tissue out of the balance zone? No, of course you can't. So what's going to happen? The bone's going to go back from where it came from. It's going to leave your teeth behind. How useful are teeth without bone?
Yeah.
Not very.
Right.
I worry we've got a massive disaster in the making. You know, I see this as the biggest scandal. I think it's going to make the smoking scandal look small beer.
Because it's causing these downstream health effects.
Oh,
right?
it's causing, this is so many modern diseases, I believe, stem from this.
Yeah.
And no one's even talking about it.
Like what?
And of course, my desire, all I'm asking for is a debate on why teeth are crooked.
Right.
Why, you know, that's simple.
Steel man your opponents in the orthodontics world. What's their best argument for your question? What's their best argument they've got that you've heard?
They don't want to talk.
Zero.
No, nothing. There is no argument. There is no decent evidence. You know, you look at the hard scientific evidence. Look at what the anthropologists, look at someone like what Robert Corricini has done. There's hundreds of peer-reviewed papers in, you know, these are quality papers in respected peer-reviewed journals. Look at the entire profession of anthropology and archaeology. You know, they find burial sites. That's half of what they do, is looking for burial sites. When they find a burial site with a few trinkets or, you know, a couple of stone tools or nothing, you know, a really old burial site, teeth are perfectly straight. And the more trinkets, the more complexity, the more sophisticated the lifestyle, the more crooked the teeth, the less space for the teeth there are. It's clear and obvious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no one's really questioning it. The only way the orthodontic community can maintain their scientific illusion is by avoiding any debate.
Wow.
By avoiding the scientific process while claiming to be evidence-based. I don't get that one, David. I really don't. All I'm asking for is science.
Yeah. When a child is grinding their teeth, even at a young age, that's a sign of a small jaw or what, or not, the tongue is not proper?
I don't know that. I don't know. You know, maybe a little bit of grinding was normal. We know that kids would wear their teeth down a lot. You know, if you were back in the turn of the 1900s, it was considered a warning if you didn't have space for a half crown between all your baby teeth, upper front baby teeth. Now, a half crown, for those who don't know, is about 2 millimeters. So you should have 2 millimeters between all of the upper front teeth. And if you didn't, you had problems ahead. Now you think, I don't see any kids with that now. Now, of course, if that was protocol in the turn of the 1900s, you would imagine that you didn't actually have to treat many people. Well, I know you didn't. My grandfather said so. You didn't have to treat many people. That means, I'm sorry, I'm exposing myself as a third generation orthodontist here. You know, we're a very boring family. My mother was a physio and my sister's a physio as well. You know, lack of imagination, I guess. But so you didn't treat, not many people at the turn of the 1900s did not have space for 2 millimeters between all of their upper front teeth. Now, look around at the kids now, turn of the 20th century. No one has. I don't see any kids who've got that much space between their teeth. And people come into me and go, oh, the baby teeth were lovely. They were all nicely lined up. And I say, were there any gaps? And they said, no, they were perfect. And I said, no, perfect is big gaps. And of course, also having the teeth well worn. So if you've got the teeth well
2 millimeter
worn,
gaps between every top teeth, right?
every top front tooth,
What about the bottom teeth?
slightly less,
1
but
millimeter or
in the same region, because remember, it's a symmetric system. The top fits the bottom.
but that's the front teeth for top and bottom. Okay.
Front teeth.
Yeah.
Front top teeth, 2 millimeters. You would get, so, the dentists in the turn of the 1900s would put half crown between all the front teeth. And the protocol was, if you didn't have enough space, you would do X, Y, Z. And you would hope to cure malocclusion with a small course of expansion. So these guys would never have any crookedness again and get their wisdom teeth in. We should have our wisdom teeth working and in function. And if you think you've got a lot of kids out there now who don't have the wisdom teeth, plus they had a premolar extracted for orthodontics, and they didn't have space behind their wisdom teeth either. It's like we're a different species.
Mm.
And we
was that
expect
you that did an interview? I think you were talking about a forensic dentist that was looking at all the teeth.
Yeah. So, I remember we met up after work, and a friend of mine bought his dental nurse, and I was chatting to her. She said that weekends she worked with a forensic dentist, and he was looking at these skulls, because he gets to look where most people don't. You can't go and meet some 14-year-old and just open his gums up and have a look. But, he's finding these unfortunate people who have died, and trying to identify them. And he's saying it's like these are different species, and also then he's seeing what we call fenestration and dehiscence. This is where the teeth are breaking through, the roots of the teeth are breaking through the bone. Mm. And when the skulls I worked on when I was training would have the odd dehiscence and fenestration. The ancient skulls of hunter-gatherers, well, I don't see many from what I've seen. And yet these modern kids today, all the roots, almost all of them are coming through the bone. He said it's crazy. And what we don't know is what's going to be happening, because we have not been doing modern orthodontics for very long. Only 20, 30 years we've had this mass orthodontics, and everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. I mean, stop for a second and look around you. How many dentists in their dental clinics are not offering Invisalign, 6-month smiles, something like that?
They're all offering that. Yeah.
And all the orthodontists are busy as hell. We not see either. Everyone has suddenly got paranoid about how they look. And that there must be some truth to that, because people are becoming more concerned about their look. But also, in combination with this, there's a rapid increase in incidence of and amount of crookedness. And most people who are going to there and having Invisalign as an adult had orthodontics as a child, and they're having it again. And sometimes they have it a third time. And do we really think that there are no risks to doing this? I mean, we really think you're not damaging the teeth, the roots, and the bone from all this moving around one way than the other way? I mean, again, all I'm asking for is debate. Don't believe a word I'm saying, but support my message for debate. Support my campaign for prevention and debate.
Have you been to America and debated some of the orthodontists here or nothing?
No one will talk. Never had it. Never, ever. Because
America's a little bit more of a debate society, at least nowadays, than maybe your place.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Really? You could debate there
no.
too?
Oh, no, you're not going to get a debate out.
Oh.
You try. David, go and get an orthodontist. Go and get a senior orthodontist to come and have a debate with me.
I want to get the orthodontist that I had as a kid, and he had that horrible medieval torture device with the key. Oh my goodness, where you had to turn the jaw.
That I hate to say, David, that medieval torture device. My father took the National Health to the High Court to allow those to be used.
He was on the other side of this issue, huh?
Well, that's widening. That's what I do. I'm big into that.
Oh, so you like the medieval torture device?
Yeah, I talk. That's all I do. Well, I do.
You like that device?
Yes, it's good. Real? Yes, it's widening. It's creating space for the tongue.
I thought you were against all orthodontic devices. You're not?
No, but I have to use orthodontic devices to get the results I get. But I always tell people.
So you use braces?
You mean braces? The terminology has changed.
Okay.
Braces, you mean fixed braces?
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that glued onto the teeth. No, I don't like those. I think they're worse they're net detriment to your health.
But you like the torture device, that thing that's with the key that you turn every night.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll do those, mate.
That doesn't have an artificial, like you were saying, like you're artificially messing up what the teeth want to do or whatever?
Sometimes you have to. If you're in a hole, sometimes you need a helping hand to get out that hole.
Okay.
Okay. Now, that's what I do. I help. So we were talking earlier on about having enough tongue space. And I said, if you don't have enough tongue space, what are you going to do? You're going to need a helping hand from one of those torture devices. And then I use other devices that if you drop your jaw down, it hurts. It works. I'm not saying this treatment's not for everyone. I say my treatment that I do is terrible. It's only, in my opinion, better than the alternatives.
But if people listening, if they've got some problems with their jaws, you said stand up straight, keep your mouth shut, breathe with your nose, fix your diet, chew a lot of food. Is there exercises you can do like this? Does that help?
Well, this is so yes, there are exercises, and so I got bored of giving the exercises to my patients because it's repeating the same thing time and time again. It's just it's boring. So I put some of them online. And have you typed mewing? Have you Googled mewing?
I have not.
Right. Okay. Google mewing. Those exercises kind of got more popular than I was expecting.
You became a meme a little bit?
They christened mewing. I didn't come up with the term, but there are millions of mewers out there now. And it's crazy how many people, but there are exercises.
What's a mew? Can you do a mew?
No, it's a whole group of exercises.
Okay, I see.
But it's basically getting your tongue on the roof of the mouth. In fact, I'll give myself a plug here. We're going to do a series. We're going to do an app, mewing app. So we're going to release it as cheap as we can, trying to raise much awareness. I just want to all I want to do is raise research funding. I need money to research. When you're working as hard as I do, you just don't have a spare moment to focus on anything else but just getting people treated, improving the system. I need a research fund. Research doesn't happen without money. That's what it comes down to.
Are there any researchers interested in your work around the world?
No, of course they're not.
No.
I've written to every teaching institution in the UK twice. I've had endless, I'm pressurizing people. Remember, we're a socialized healthcare system in the UK. That research money, they're salaried people on the public purse. I'm paying for them in my taxes. All your listeners in the US are paying for the same people in the US. Why aren't they coming to research? Why aren't they coming here listening to what I'm doing? The biggest teaching hospital in the UK is 20 minutes up the train line from me. Well, they just come down and have a look. If we went and had a look at the facial outcomes of their patients, and they looked at the facial outcomes of my patients, this would be done in a morning. Or we could have that debate on etiology. It'd be done in a morning.
But you can't.
We can't compare faces because it's not ethical. People haven't consented for that. Well, why don't you consent them? Why don't you ask them if they wouldn't mind us coming along one day and having a scientific look? We're not going to put this all online. We're just going to have a look as professionals.
So if money wasn't an issue, you had a blank check for research, what would be your ideal research study that you would want to commission? If you can get your... now
you're asking me. Right. Well, first of all, so I've saved my money up. I've not gone on holiday. I'm not going anywhere. I'm buying a 3D scanner. The bloody thing's still in Tennessee. I want it as soon as possible. I start taking facial scans every couple of visits of my patients. I plot their facial changes. Now I want to get kids in school. So we take normative samples, just look like normal people grow. And then we take people who are having orthodontics and see how they grow. And just find out, understand what's happening. What I'm saying is that orthodontics, society, the way we're growing up is not encouraging us to get good facial growth. All right, how are faces growing? Let's get some marks in the sand. Then let's see how orthodontics affects faces, because that's what worries me. You know, my father went on national television in 1998 saying that he thought about 10 to 20%, but probably 20% now, I think, of faces can be damaged for conventional orthodontics. You know, his reputation was destroyed. And yet I see facial damage. Go online, Google it, have a little look. But they destroyed his reputation totally. And, you know, part of my mission now is to restore my father's reputation. That's what sons should do. But also I want the truth. I think, you know, these simple public health messages could help people. And if we had this technology, then we could study it. We could go to one school and say, well, look, could we just, you know, I know it's a motive thing. I'd need people to help me with these ethics and the ethic approval of these studies. The money would help with that. But we could just start one school chewing gum and the other school doesn't. See what that does to facial form. Start telling kids.
What age would you start at?
4.
4, okay.
4. I think it's difficult, you know, it's difficult under that because they swallow it or they, you know, it's difficult. But, you know, some tough chewing gum, eaten, you know, 1 or 2 hours every day. But also you could get the schools to tell kids to sit up straight and shut their mouths. That's not a new idea, is it?
Should you roll your shoulders back all the way or not all the way?
I'm not an expert in body posture. I can't be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but again, when I've got a whole concept of using the tongue, and it's amazing when you get your tongue in the right place, how your body posture follows through. When you get your tongue in the right place, how you start walking just like barefoot walking. When you get your tongue in the right place, your body posture just improves. It's very interesting.
So the tongue is the tongue is the key for the body posture too. It's not the other way around.
Well, I think it's a missing element. I mean, there are many bits that key for body posture. You know, lots of bits.
What if you have a big heavy beard? Does that weigh the jaw down and pull it back? I'm serious. I mean, does that add to it? What if you? I was also wondering if you have a big brain.
Yeah. Using your hair, I'm sure that doesn't help either. It's not pulling your head back.
But what about a big brain? Does a big brain pull the, you know, make the jaw
your head
tired?
Should be balanced on the top. And if your head's balanced on the top, so if you make no effort to hold your head in the right place, then you're balanced. We should be balanced. Go back, look at those guys walking off the African Serengeti. Look at their body posture. But, you know, I just want research. I want to understand this. You know, apparently, you know, by reputation, I'm getting the best facial changes ever achieved by anyone in the history of medicine, anywhere in the world. We're sitting here getting these results. We're banging them out. I'm asking for research. I'm screaming to people, just come and have a look at these results. And no one's interested.
Have you talked to Matt Ridley at all?
Say that again?
Have you talked to Matt Ridley? Dr. Matt Ridley?
Who's he?
He's in the House of Lords with you guys. He's the zoologist, and he's kind of a contrarian voice for things. Maybe he could get you some.
I'll write that name down.
Matt Ridley.
Well, I mean, it's becoming all the more pressing now because
he's a zoologist and he's a famous biologist. He's a member of the House of Lords over there.
Do you have a contact? Because normally you need introductions to get to talk to these types of people.
I'll introduce you. I'll do what
you need. That's what I find. Most people just never respond to me. And the funniest, you know, you get someone interested, you get someone sort of clued up, then they go and ask a senior dentist. And of course, a senior dentist will quickly tell them that I'm a complete charlatan. Don't talk to him. He's a charlatan.
And what's the best argument they have that you're a charlatan because you don't like braces?
It's a reputation. If they have no evidence. He's got no evidence.
Yeah.
He's got no evidence that is right. What? Sorry, we looked at the evidence. Yes, I don't have evidence that the treatment that I'm doing is, I don't have any evidence on the treatment I'm doing. Well, not much, because no one will help me research. And it is such hard work.
You mean clinical, you mean like clinical evidence?
No, I don't have clinical evidence.
Right.
But I've got, so that's why I'm just saying we need a debate on why teeth are crooked. Everything will follow from that.
Right.
You know, I don't even want my worries that orthodontics could lead to sleep apnea or jaw joint problems or bad body posture or that this is happening anyway. literally, just start with the etiology, start with the debate of why it is happening. And then we'll know from there. But of course, to add insult, you know, I spent a 5-year letter writing campaign. I had questions asked in the House of Lords on the all-party dental committee, you know, the General Dental Council, 3 different chairs, the quango above the General Dental Council, the British Orthodontic Society, I mean, endless mails. I mean, just about everyone that I could think about writing to, I wrote to. And I said, look, what's going on? We just need debate. We need the scientific process. You know, this thing that's achieved, got us all of this, you know, allowed me to be able to speak to you on the other side of, well, a third of the way around the world in real time and be recorded and sent out to everyone else. You know, this technology was created by following the scientific process. You know, how can we have a group of doctors who decides, fingers up to that, we're happy guys, don't do that, don't engage in the scientific process, it might, you know, damage our income. But on top of that, I'm now being taken to I'm being taken to court, well, you know, the General Dental Council court, where they're trying to take my license away. And we've got 4 cases, 2 of them on the videos. Most of that's been thrown out now that proper lawyers have seen it.
Like complaints or something? Customer complaints? Is it like customer complaints?
No, the British Orthodontic Society has unanimously referred me to the General Dental Council on the most heinous terms. The most heinous terms. I mean, they've really laid it on. So I'm asking them for debate, and they're referring me to the General Dental Council.
Yeah. That's just what but you have to understand that what you're in is not on order. Your situation you're describing, my whole show, we examine scapegoats and we examine how society has these kind of religious structures that kind of coalesce around specialty bodies of knowledge, and they create kind of an inner sanctum, and they expel and sacrifice anything that violates their kind of shared dogma. This is a religious thing. It goes back thousands of years. You have to understand, you're messing with anthropology on more ways than one, not just the dog.
No. I'm very familiar with that. Yeah. But there's an old phrase: don't go in for a fight if you might lose.
Right.
And here now, I've got to start pulling it together to make certain I don't lose. But the biggest problem here is that in courts, in the General Dental Council type court, in fact, most courts, you know, general civil courts as well, they only want to hear from the experts. They don't want to hear, because, you know, the devil can quote the Bible. I could spin evidence and I could, you know, laud it on, but they want expert. Now, how many experts of orthodontics do you think agree with me?
It's probably 0, like you said, right?
0.
Yeah.
These are all, you know, we're relying here on white, retired, semi-retired, male, privileged, often private school orthodontists.
What about experts like in Africa or Asia? Have you talked to them? Maybe they're not in that same bubble.
They're not in the UK. So I mean, the thing, luckily for me, and this is a stroke of luck, that before COVID, you really needed someone local. But since COVID, they are starting to take and respect people using Zoom, experts using Zoom. So I've got contacts. There's one person in the States, the US, in California, that I might use, who's actually learned everything from my father. And now he is here defending me. This is quite interesting.
Does Weston Price have the foundation, do they have any experts that could scientifically back up some of the things you're saying?
Remember, I'm not in total agreement with the Weston Price Foundation. You know, I had a long email debate with Sally Fallon. And of course, she wasn't able to provide me with any concrete evidence. I said, Sally, the door's open, provide any evidence that dietary contents causes problems. I would love to. I would love to back dietary content because it's so simple. But no one's provided me with any hard evidence yet.
So let me make this clear. So you're saying there is a huge dietary effect, but you just don't know what the mechanism of that is.
No, it's the consistency. So it's the hardness of diet. It's how hard the diet is. It's not how what is in the diet. I mean, so
Okay.
Weston Price was going around the world at the time of the second epidemiological transition. So the first epidemiological transition, we went from hunter-gatherers to farming. The second epidemiological transition was when we went from generalists to specialists. So that was the Industrial Revolution. And what was happening was American mainly, also slightly British, entrepreneurs were going into communities, usually communities that were had a port, and they would build a deep water port. They would set up an office. They would persuade the local farmers to grow a certain cash crop. And they would say to the farmers, look, we will provide a shop that will provide all your food and everything you need. And then you can start just cultivating this cash crop. And then when you sell the cash crop, you will have enough money to feed yourself from the shop and have money left over. And that was basically, that's capitalism in a stroke. Now, what happened then was these peoples around the world suddenly started eating different foods that they were used to. And that's what Weston Price was observing. So he observed that all of a sudden they had this derangement of the face. And he was a contemporary of Mellanby. So we'd worked out, or we already knew about scurvy and lemons and limes, why we were called limeys, because the British Navy made it sailors eat limes, so the Americans called us limeys. Well, at least we didn't have scurvy.
Mm-hmm.
They'd just worked out what it was and the fact it was vitamin C. Mellanby worked out vitamin D, wasn't it? And all these vitamins were dropping down. And here's Weston Price, and he notices this group of people changing their diet. So he postulates, what was it, vitamin A, D, possibly vitamin K. Now, that was a very sensible postulation. However, he didn't account for the fact that you were going from this incredibly rough, tough, hard diet to a very soft diet. He didn't equate for it. So clearly, the major factor that Weston Price did observe was a change in the consistency of the diet, not the contents. Now, I would love to see some good research showing a link with contents, and we should be able to see that. I've got lots of case examples where you should see it, but you don't. Now, if someone, I'm doors open, come up with some good science, I will eat it. I will eat that science. Just provide me with some.
It's hard to measure because so many people are eating the Western diet. It's hard to have a control.
Hang around. You've got other things. Vitamin D is a sunshine diet, isn't it? Well, hang on. You've got Britain populated Australia. All right. So you've got a group of people who are relatively purebred who have moved to a country where you're going to have more vitamin D all your life from start to finish, particularly before we were worried about holes in the ozone layers and cancer and all of that. Go back 30, 40 years, kids were out on the streets with more sunshine. Is there a difference in the levels of malocclusion? No. And yet they've got far more vitamin D from word go. Their parents will have far more vitamin D all of the time, particularly just before fertilization. And do you see a change? No, you don't.
Well, I think my hypothesis is the big factor could be the replacement of animal fats with vegetable oils. That's my hypothesis because that's ubiquitous around every Western culture.
It is ubiquitous, but then that would need further, you'd need
I'm just saying that's my theory. That's my hypothesis. I don't have any basis to explain
I mean, we can go into that, but, I'm trying,
because if you look at indigenous cultures today, the ones they're eating, some of them are high carb diets, some of them are low carb diets, some of them are lots of vitamin E, some of them are not. But the key overlying factor seems to be that they don't eat these vegetable oils, and that's where you see a lot of the diseases of civilization that are not present. So that seems to be the kind of factor that's consistent there,
Yeah, it's interesting. As I said, I was literally saying to my wife the other day, stop that sunflower oil.
Mm-hmm. That's the worst. That's the highest linoleic acid.
I know. We might have a little word this evening.
Yeah.
What do you think of olive oil?
That one's a little bit of a betweener. The problem with olive oil is that a lot of them are laced with canola oil and some of the bad oils, and they'll say it's 100% olive oil, but it's a sketchy industry. You got to be careful.
Yeah, you mean those capitalists sketchy?
Well, hey, I really have loved our discussion. I want to give you a final thought to give everybody whatever your final thoughts are, and plug your website, and we will certainly stay in touch. And I'll try to see if I can introduce you to some folks. Maybe we'll see what happens. Who knows, you know?
Yeah, you would. I don't need to plug the website. I've got more patients than I can cope with right now.
Okay.
It's just, you know, it dessert. That's my alarm for something.
All right.
I can't remember what. Oh, yes. Often there's a dental meeting at this time in the evening. So what I'd really like people to do is go and support that Prevent Crooked Teeth. You know, go and show your support. You know, this is something real. This is something tangible. We need change. We need debate. Support that Prevent Crooked Teeth. You know, if you want to go and become one of my Patreons, go and become a Patreon. And it's Orthotropics Patreon. So ortho as in orthodontic, tropic as in the Tropic of Capricorn or Cancer. Go and, or it actually means growth, tropos. But so we're doing straight growth rather than straight teeth. Orthotropics. You know, literally, it all helps because, you know, I want research, and this is everyone. The only people who are not interested in what I'm saying is people without faces. If you've got a face, you've got skin in the game. And what I do and what I say is going to be important to you. Remember that 20% probably of people over 60 who are going to die 10 years early from sleep apnea and its consequences. And that is only going to increase. And I think that will increase dramatically until it's no one can question what's happening. As I said, craniofacial dystrophy, the biggest disease you've never heard of. It's most likely affecting you.
Well, thanks again, Dr. Mew. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you.
Pleasure. David, thank you very much. Stay in touch, please.
Thank you.